Hi, mermaids. How are you doing today? So, today I wanted to share about alchemy and the practice. I'm not sure if alchemy can be considered a practice, but sure, we'll call it a practice today. I wanted to share about alchemy, spiritual alchemy. It's the experience, it's the process that we've been in. If you were joined us for Magdalena Rising, and if you've gone through any of the live ceremonies that I've done, we're literally in alchemical containers as we do this. And spiritual alchemy is such an ancient process. I see Bianca's here. Hi, love. Welcome. So, spiritual alchemy is such an ancient process, yet most of us are familiar only with, for most of our lives anyway, with the stories of physical alchemy and the sort of myths and mysticism around physical alchemy, which is the idea of turning lead, physical lead, into gold. And while those experiences may have very well happened, while there may very well have been physical alchemists who literally were able to transmute physical lead into gold, I believe that those stories were really um, vestiges of a much more ancient ideology, a much more ancient path, and a much more ancient practice, which is turning our spiritual lead into spiritual gold, which is a much more valuable process. That unfortunately, it's possible that we've heard so many stories of turning physical lead into physical gold because society was unable to see the absolute value and worth of this spiritual process. So that story got turned into a physical myth um, for a society that valued the material world a lot more than the spiritual world. So welcome. Thanks for the hearts. Who's ever clicking that heart button a lot. Welcome if you're live. Welcome if you're on replay. And feel free to comment if you have any questions or any ideas that pop into your mind. I love receiving your comments, whether you're live on a replay and reading them later if you're on replay. So spiritual alchemy is actually something that many of us do and experience in our daily lives without even knowing it. So an example might be, and sorry, like the video is shaking a little bit, is because it's on my bed and it's kind of like, bouncy, but maybe we'll just like have fun. Yay, we're bouncing. Okay, stop that. So anyway, back to the regularly scheduled programming. So many of us actually go through alchemical processes on the daily. So an example might be if you are like feeling super intense and you're super emotional, maybe something happened with a partner or a friend or something at work happened and you're just feeling all sorts of like, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to go out for a run. And so you go out for a run and you're more in a natural setting and you're breathing the fresh air and you're breathing the sunshine and you're just like running, breathing, breathing, breathing. And at the end of your run, you stop, you breathe. And after 5 minutes, you realize I feel a lot better. Like I moved that out of my system. To me, in my perspective, you just went through an experience of spiritual alchemy. So that it's almost like something that's just intuitive in a lot of us, right? But let's talk a little bit about working through it in a more conscious process and in a more mystical, esoteric process, which is how it has been done for a long time. So Crystal says, I love you. That is so nice. Thank you. I wonder if it was the shaking on the bed that made you say that, because you were like, shaking on the bed is so cool. Anyway, back to the regularly scheduled programming again. Okay, where were we? Okay, so we're just like mixing like modern and ancient, like crazy and like, all priestessy in one. So I've been very blessed to have found modern mystery schools that have really reactivated my understanding and awareness of spiritual alchemy, most notably the 13 Moon Mystery School. And my two mentors on the 13 Moon Mystery School are Elaine Kalila Sophia and Eden Amadora, for those of you who might be familiar with them. And I've sat in temples and ceremonies both in person, physically, and online with them, with Eden physically in person, with both of them online. And a lot of the time people are like, they know that I do live ceremonies online and They know that I attend live ceremonies online, and I've gotten questions before of like, is that really like, is that effective? Like, people are just kind of confused with the technology portion of it, but absolutely. And if you've ever experienced maybe one of our live ceremonies together or someone else's, um, you probably know, like, yeah, these containers are still very potent, and we're just using as modern priestesses in this age where finally it's safe for us to speak up, because like everyone thinks we're crazy anyway, so I don't fucking care. Like, we can actually use all of these new tools, so we're going to. Anyway, so I've been, sitting with them in ceremony for quite a while now, years. And we go through these alchemical processes, and a lot of the time, like, we're just sitting in stillness. And yet, even though we're sitting in stillness, there's so much movement happening, because as we sit, we're working with our higher selves, we're working with source energy, and we're working with rarefied frequencies, specific frequencies. And in the 13 Moon Mystery School, specifically, there's many different frequencies that we'll go through with 13 different archetypes. So an example might be working with the violet flame in the Goddess of Compassion's temple. I've actually been working with the violet flame long before I sat in mystery schools or consciously recognized what alchemy was, because my mother, who's very spiritual lady herself, told me a long time ago, even when I was like, I don't know, I think you're kind of weird. She said, use the violet flame. You can, if you say something that you don't mean to say, or if something negative happens and you want to clear the energy of it, you can picture a violet fire burning it away. And so even when I was like, okay, mom, like, crazy, love you, because I wasn't always into this stuff. I was a skeptic and just like weirded out previously when I was a teenager, but I would still use it, and I also would still ask Archangel Michael for help all the time. Those are kind of the two things I remember doing, even though I was like not really sure. And Reiki. She sent me to a Reiki course class. I started working with Reiki even before I was like knew what the heck was going on. So Sarah says, yes, I can attest to this. The Sophia Code activated me so much. Yeah, and that was the other, when I said most notably 13 Moon Mystery School, I was also thinking the Sophia Code in my head as well, in terms of alchemical processes. So back to like working with rarefied frequencies and working with frequencies in meditation and in ceremony. These frequencies are very real. So again, example, it would be a violet flame. Another example might be like the diamond ray. Basically any color that you can think of has a lot of frequency to it, a certain vibration, a certain potency, a certain medicine that you can work within your system. So you might have done this intuitively, learning about the chakras. You might have brought a frequency of yellow or gold or white into your body, and, started working with some of these frequencies. Also, in the mystery school settings where I, work in ceremony, we also work with symbols a lot. So we might bring in, today I was working in ceremony with my mentor Eden, and we brought in the solar cross, which is like an even cross, equal cross with a circle around it. And we worked with the sapphire frequency, the energy of sapphire blue. So, color and symbols are often used in spiritual alchemy. And so we'll sit in these ceremonial settings, in these containers. And, if you were with us in Magdalena Rising or potentially in past ceremonies, you'll know that we will bring in, say, the red rose, or we'll bring in the frequency of the Magdalena, or we'll work with our ascended masters and ask them to bring in specific frequencies that are helpful for us. We'll work with maybe crystals or sound, right? And it's all etheric. It's happening etherically when we're sitting. But we can feel the alchemy happening, which is basically when we're in an alchemical container, there's three parts to that, from my understanding, right? There is the crucible, like the container. And as humans, as divine humans, our body is the container that the alchemy happens in, which is a really interesting experience, right? It can feel very intense because we're actually in our human bodies, and it's like, whoa, what's happening? And then we have the substance that we're transmuting or transforming, which is our spiritual lead, most of the time, right? It is maybe our pain, our unexpressed, suppressed emotions from childhood, our crusty stuff that we're just like, what is that? That makes me feel like shit. That is what we're working with. That's our substance. And then the third point is the fuel for transformation. So this is always some aspect of divinity. This is like pure source energy coming in, or many of its different rays. That's why we're talking about the violet flame or the diamond white light or the symbols. They're all simply aspects of divine energy. So we're pulling on divine energy. Even though I'm like kind of pulling it from the sky, divine energy lives inside of us. So you can just pull from really anywhere. Just get that divine energy from anywhere. In the Magdalene manuscript, a book that maybe some of you have read or familiar with. If not, highly recommend it if you're interested in Magdalene frequencies. Tom Kenyon, the author, talks about actually working with the sun, so you can work with different energetics. He does this alchemy. He sits in alchemy and he pulls in the sun to really help that life force, to give that fuel. And a lot of the time what's occurring is this like alchemical, well, it's always really occurring like this, is alchemical fire, in my experience anyway. Maybe different things are happening. What's happening, the alchemy can feel very fiery, very hot, because we're working with light. We're working with divinity and divine light. So as we're working with divine light and we're working with a substance in the crucible, in the container of our own body, things heat up, things stir, things move. And if you're sitting in ceremony and you're in an alchemical container, in an alchemical experience, you may feel actually a lot of physical sensations that are happening. Common one is just tears, just crying, just feeling movement, just feeling like, whoa, maybe a lot of emotion stirring. Another common experience is to feel literal heat. Like I'm actually feeling heat rising in me now as I'm even speaking about this. I felt it earlier today when we were sitting in ceremony with my mentor in a circle that I'm in. Just a lot of heat, and sometimes like cool, like it might feel really cold or hot or just like weird things going on. I've like burped from like the deepest part of me, like before, just like that was like a couple of weeks ago in ceremony. I was like literally, I was like, oh, I am like burping out like something fucking really intense right now. And that's when we were working with the mother line. I was sitting in ceremony picturing my mother line and sending them love and experience a transmutation there. And I was like burping from my womb. So even though we're sitting usually in silence or in ceremony, and we can feel a lot happening inside of us when we're working in this container with these three parts. Remember, we have our container, which as humans mostly takes on the form of our own bodies. We have what's being transmuted, the substance, and what's doing the transmutation, which is some aspect of divinity. So that is the experience of spiritual alchemy. And if you step onto an alchemical path, if you step onto being the path of a spiritual alchemist, and you don't just kind of do it by accident, and sort of by intuition, you actually are stepping onto this path and really working with these rarefied frequencies, consciously working with aspects of divinity for a complete transformation within yourself. It's a really intense path. Probably most of you watching are like know that, or like on it, or are like, yeah, I think that's like what's kind of been happening to like me. Yeah, that rings a bell. Okay. So it's an intense path. It's not for the faint of heart, but it is the path that us as reincarnated priestesses of the light, priestesses of the sacred darkness, priestesses of Isis, priestesses of the Magdalene, priestesses from all lineages, we come and we incarnate again in this modern day world, and we're like, well, there's a lot of fucking cleaning up to do, and it looks like I'm on the cleanup crew, really. And how are we on the cleanup crew? How do we actually help to clean up this fucking craziness, just absolute lunacy, like not in like a good moon way, like fucked up lunacy. You live here. How do we do that? We work through our own bodies, we work through our own vessels, we work through our own beings. As I'm sure you're fully aware of now, we heal ourselves in order to heal the collective. And a lot of the time we are connected to collective energy anyway. We're connected to our ancestry lines. We're connected to the collective fear body around the world. That's why we feel so just traumatized or terrorized or anxious or fearful for some of us, sometimes, and for other of us, often, depending on where you're at in your life. Um, Sorry, just saw some comments come in. And okay, I'm seeing that Crystal just ordered the book, Sophia Code. Yes, good job. And Nikki says, yes, I got you live. Yes, you got me live. I don't know why I just thought of like Pokemon, like gotta catch them all when you said that. Anyway, so it's funny that I just like go on these side tangents because I have to go back and be like, what was I saying? Okay, yes. Yes, the cleanup crew. So that's what we're doing. We're doing it alchemically through our own bodies, through our own vessels. But my experience, yeah, it's fucking intense. It's just like, whoa. But my experience has been like, I see the shifts in my own life. I see that even 5 years ago, I was, um, I was still awesome, but I was living a lot more in this lack consciousness. I wasn't super clear about my path. Um, I was still awesome, whatever, it's still great. But let's just say I've noticed a lot of shifts, and I can hold more space. Things just get like, if you're on this path, right? Things just get like more and more and more and more real. Sometimes you feel like you've gone backwards. That's a normal process, part of alchemy, because of the openings and the contractions, opening and contractions. Sometimes you're just like, I'm doing all this spiritual work and I'm in this alchemical process, transmuting my shit. And I just felt like kind of shit for 3 months. That's actually normal in this path, because what happens is we go through layers. So we get a little bit of that spiritual shadow, spiritual lead, and we bring it up. And we're like, oh yeah, cool. Out, transmuting that, bringing in the light, doing my things. And oh, another layer. Oh, fuck, a really big layer just came up. Okay. And sometimes the layers that come up are just like a lot bigger than we might have anticipated. Case in point, myself, when I worked with ayahuasca in the Amazon last fall, and like, oh my gosh, ayahuasca brought up like 900 layers at once. And then after I was like, oh, like I'm still working through them 100 million%. I'm just like needing to really be present with myself. So that's like my little spiel on alchemy right now. And if you're wondering, you're like, that's cool, I feel like I might need a little bit of direction in this whole alchemy experience. You're in luck if you on a soul level are resonating with the Temple of the Rose. Oh, also I was going to say, what does it have to do? I'm reading my own description right now. What does it have to do with Mary Magdalene, Isis, and ancient Egypt? Yes, I will tell you about that. It's kind of a good segue. So we are working in a very alchemical container for Temple of the Rose over 3 months. We start on Monday. This is a 3-month deep dive circle into the Magdalene mysteries. We'll be working with Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Yeshua, Isis, and Anna, grandmother of Jesus, in this container. And this is like literally just like stepping into an alchemical container and like being guaranteed, if you show up, to be very transformed at the end of this experience. How? I don't know, because I'm not the one doing it. I'm just space holding. We're working with very powerful beings, ascended masters. We're working with your higher self and source energy, and we're sitting in very potent alchemical containers over the course of 3 months. And all I can say is that those frequencies will change your life. And if you have a feeling or have already had a remembrance that you're a priestess of Isis or a priestess of the Magdalene, and that you have a connection with ancient Egypt, maybe Atlantis, a lot of these beautiful ancient cultures, it is time to remember. It is not crazy to remember yourself as this powerful ancient being, because that is who you are. And we have work to do on this planet. So this is an invitation, if you're feeling resonant, to step into that temple, to that alchemical container. If you feel like that's a soul resonance, you're gonna know, because I've been in prayer a lot in the last week, asking for those souls who are resonant on a soul level to step into the Temple of the Rose, that they know that and they feel that. So I'm not interested in trying to get the most possible people into the Temple of the Rose at all. I'm only interested in allowing beings that are on a soul resonance guided to step in to sit with us, because even I know for myself, I've heard from my guides, this experience will change you and heal you. I'm a space holder for it, but it's going to heal me and transform me just as much as it is everybody else is stepping in. So the link to that is in the title of this video if you click down to see more. But I want to continue around that Mary Magdalene, Isis, and ancient Egyptian thread in terms of alchemy. Mary Magdalene walked a path of alchemy as she lived her life. She was trained as the priestess of Isis, amongst many other sort of lineages that she learned from and deepened into. And Yeshua himself, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, Anna, they walked the path of transmutation and alchemy. They became masters at working with spiritual shadows, spiritual lead, and bringing in very high frequencies of pure divinity, of pure light, to transmute that and transform that in such a way that their beings became absolutely clear vessels for the light. Because in my perspective opinion, there was like really not much, if any, shadow left in their whole entire beings on any of their bodies, etheric, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. They walked the path of deep purity. You know, fortunately, they were born into situations where they were trained from an early age by highly adept initiators and initiates in order to walk that path. And because of this, the amount of light and divinity that they were able to hold, embody, and emit, as you know, completely changed the world. Even though we think of Christianity, which sprang from, Christianity today, modern Christianity, didn't really spring from Yeshua and his teachings. Modern Christianity sprang from a desire for control for the population and is very different. The teachings of modern Christianity, and even Christianity from the early ages, is very different from the teachings that were directly coming from Yeshua. If you were spreading the actual teachings of Yeshua around 300, 400, 500, AD, you would have been killed or tortured, or, something funky would have happened to you. Because Yeshua's message was, you are living divinity. God lives within you. You have direct communion to God. I am not a God per se. If I am, then you are, then we all are. Yeshua, Jesus, was never coming to this planet to say, I am the Savior. I am your Savior. Worship me. Although modern Christianity has a lot of beautiful aspects to it, because people are in direct communion with Yeshua and are receiving messages from him. And if you really go deep into the heart of true Christianity, on a soul level, it still is about unconditional love amidst all the bullshit that's around it, around not accepting and so there's different aspects here to the situation, but Yeshua's teachings and Mary Magdalene's teachings, they sprang from divinity, that we are pure divinity, and that we have this capability ourselves to be alchemical containers so that we can help to clear our own vessels for ourselves in the name of love and for the one, right? And sometimes it's like, challenging to be in this modern day world as this like sacred ancient being, priestess that you are, that I am. Things aren't like slush. It's kind of ugly, to be honest with you. If you have this like soul remembrance, it doesn't matter if you have visions or specific pictures, or you just have a feeling or remembrance. If you go really in ancient days, the temples were so beautiful. Even the cities, if there was a celebration of the goddess, a celebration of divinity, were beautiful. There was a coherence. Things were built around sacred geometry. The way that we dressed, the way that we walked was so beautiful. So it can be hard to live in this modern day world with all of this chaos, with all of these straight lines and things that are built completely out of any sort of natural order. But that's why we're here. We're at this amazing transitionary point. It's really, really intense. It's a lot. I get it. And we're here, but we're here. Our souls decided. It helps me when I'm in a really intense moment that my soul decided to be here. My soul knew exactly what it was doing, and I'm meant to be here. My soul said, this is exactly where you need to be in this body at this time. So if you are feeling like, you know what, Beth, this resonates, I do feel like I want to step more into remembrance of who I am as a priestess. Um, I am communing and I'm asking your soul to step forth, and I'm asking on a soul level, if you are resonant, if you have been called into the temple of the rose, if you have heard the call from your soul, and if you have heard the call from your soul, please don't ignore it. We need you. So you're invited to step into the Temple of the Rose 3-month journey. Doors close on Sunday night. So you are so welcome to come in, step in. You can read more about it in the title of this video. There's a link. And if you're, resonating, but you feel, you know what, Beth, on a soul level, I don't feel that pull. So perfect, amazing. And I completely respect and honor that. And I'm so glad to have you in this temple, Sister Out of the Mermaid Moon. And potentially there will be some other deeper dives that call your name, or not. You're always welcome to be here in this more public space. So Amanda's saying yes with a heart. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to hop off soon, very shortly, and go to a clothing swap. I have one article of clothing for this clothing swap because I recently, two. I'm going to bring two. Just in case you're wondering, if you're like, oh, this alchemy stuff is really intense, can we just lighten it up? There's a little clothing swap action for you. Yeah, that's all. That's all I have to say. I'm sending you so much love. Live or on replay, let me know if you have any comments, questions. I'm interested, and potentially I will be blessed enough to go deeper with you, learn more about you, share space with you in the Temple of the Rose. So much love. Have a beautiful night. May your higher self bless you. May all of your cells be so filled with vitality and life force energy. May you be well for all of your days. May you feel how deeply loved you are by your higher self, and may you know yourself to be true divinity in form. Much love. Bye.